Set against the backdrop of the chaos and civil war that enveloped 1990s Sierra Leone, Blood Diamond is the story of Danny Archer, a South African mercenary, and Solomon Bandy, a Mende fisherman. Both men are African, but their histories and their circumstances are as different as any can be, until their fates become joined in a common quest to recover a rare pink diamond that can transform their lives. While in prison for smuggling, Archer learns that Solomon, who was taken from his family and forced to work in the diamond fields, has found and hidden the extraordinary rough stone. With the help of Mandy Bowen, an American journalist whose idealism is tempered by a deepening connection with Archer, the two men embark on a trek through rebel territory. More than a search for a valuable diamond, the journey could save Solomon's family and give Archer the second chance he thought he would never have. The main theme of this movie is we must not let this happen again. It is a justice theme, the pursuit to find the truth, but is often affected by people's views and biases. The way this fits into the overarching theme of human rights is that those who were fit for work were torn from their families and forced into slave labor for blood diamonds. Refugees, including Solomon's wife and young children, were forced into detention centers and were not released until the conflict was over. The Declaration of Human Rights and judicial laws were in place to prevent the abuse, as well as foreign countries' obligation to intervene and stop the reign of the RUF, which shows how the theme of human rights bleeds into this movie. From the autobiography of Władysław Szwedzman, a Polish Jew who detailed his survival during World War II, a celebrated composer and pianist, he played the last live music heard over Polish radio airwaves before Nazi artillery hit. During the brutal occupation, he eluded deportation and remained in the devastated Warsaw Ghetto. There, he struggled to stay alive, even when cast away from those he loved. He would eventually reclaim his artistic gifts and confront his fears, with aid from the unlikeliest source, a German officer who helped him hide in the final days of the war. The theme of The Pianist is endurance. The length of time that Władysław must endure hiding from Nazis before there is even any hope of being rescued is substantial. Thus, a major theme of the film is not only survival, but the patience and endurance that Szwedzman must exhibit in order to survive. Concepts of dehumanization and the ability to take away others' human rights and the notion of sacrificing yourself and sacrificing for others is prevalent throughout the movie. Rather than promoting human rights, like most of these movies, this movie demolishes them, but advocates for them in the sense that it was something made to advocate to never let something like this happen again. Set in Mississippi during the 1960s, Skeeter is a Southern society girl who returns from college determined to become a writer, but turns her friends' lives and a Mississippi town upside down when she decides to interview the black women who have spent their lives taking care of prominent Southern families. Abilene, Skeeter's best friend's housekeeper, is the first to open up, to the dismay of her friends and the tight-knit black community. Despite Skeeter's lifelong friendships hanging in the balance, she and Abilene continue their collaboration, and soon more women come forward to tell their stories. And as it turns out, they have a lot to say. Along the way, unlikely friendships are forged and a new sisterhood emerges, but not before everyone in town has a thing or two to say themselves when becoming unwittingly and unwillingly caught up in changing times. The unifying theme of this movie is people can help one another grow. The idea that racial perspectives are open to change is central to the movie. The Help focuses on maids during the Civil Rights Movement in 1963. It brings light to Medgar Evers, an African-American activist and NAACP leader who worked toward gaining rights for African Americans at the time, as well as aiding in the fight to end segregation, which fills the human rights theme perfectly. This movie is simple. 3 women, 3 times, 3 places. 3 suicide attempts, 2 successful. All linked in a way by a novel. In Sussex in 1941, the novelist Virginia Woolf fills the pockets of her coat with rocks and walks into a river to drown. In Los Angeles in 1951, Laura Brown fills her purse with pills and checks into a hotel to kill herself. In New York in 2001, Clarissa Vaughn watches as the man she was once married to decides whether to let himself fall out of a window or not. The theme of the hours is the actual mortality of living things. Virginia Woolf died by suicide but has been preoccupied with issues of mortality for decades. With human rights, the female characters in this movie are treated differently and limited by gender because they are women. Human rights are women's rights. And with gender limitation, I mean all the norms and impositions made by society that are linked to gender categorization, that is to say, what is expected from each of them as women in the society of their respective time. These movies promote equality, peace, justice, freedom, and the protection of human dignity. The theme that every individual is entitled to rights irrespective of race, color, religion, sex, language, or social status is heavy throughout these movies, and that's why the overarching theme is human rights.